Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video we have a wonderfully unique presentation by esteemed astrologer Julian Venables titled The Real Rising Sign, Primary and Secondary Motion. And lastly, if you wish to view our current class, workshop and webinar offerings, please visit KeplerCollege.org. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Wonderful. On to today's fantastic presenter. Julian Venables, a British client-based astrologer for 23 years, holds a diploma from the Faculty of Astrological Studies. He has served as the Brighton Astrology Circle's chairman from 2011 to 2023. He teaches astrology and lectures frequently and wrote daily horoscopes for 10 years. In 2015, Julian published a novel about William Lilly, and in 2023, he published The Divine Order, which reveals a revolutionary humanistic perception shift, time for Pluto in Aquarius. His book takes astrology's spiritual essence back to classical antiquity and brings it up to the present day, resulting in a practical guide for modern living. It outlines a metaphysical order of the universe that unifies the outer and inner world. And you can find more about Julian's fantastic work at londonastrologer.co.uk. And I think if you go onto that page and scroll down to the bottom, there's a subscription link that you can join and see what fantastic work Julian has. So Julian, over to you. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. I'm going to pass on the baton to you.
Well, thank you, Callum, and thank you, Laurie, for organising this. This is a real treat to be presenting to Kepler. So my first time I've ever talked to you guys. So I'm really, really pleased. Thank you very much for this. Well, hello, everybody. And my name is Julian Venables, and you might not have heard of me before. I'm a British-based astrologer, and I've been reading charts and being an astrologer for 25 years. Even longer than that, actually. I discovered astrology in 1988, but finally got my diploma in 2010. And I have been, with Pluto and Aquarius, been working on a new way of looking at astrology. and so therefore I have a lecture to present to you today. So I'm going to do the share screen and we will just dive straight into what I've got to show you today. So really, I think I'm calling this Primary and Secondary Motion and Astrological Enlightenment, because I've always been on a search for the truth, and I do feel that things unify over one's understanding of life, and the world unifies over a number of decades and things. And I think I've finally come to a conclusion, or started to come to a conclusion about about the work I've done in astrology and how to attain a form of what might be called flashes of enlightenment or something towards that level. And I'm going to show you that today. So so there's an overview. I'll show you bit by bit what I'm going to do. So I'm going to talk first about the need for a new perception and what got me going on this whole search, and the development of then writing my book, The Divine Order, which is beautifully edited and produced. And you can buy a copy on my website, which I'll send to you, a signed copy, or you can get it on Amazon as well, amazon.com, or anywhere in the world that you might be. It's on Amazon as well. So I'll describe the new perception in my book, but I'll be describing that today as well. I've realized that primary and secondary motion are very key to developing this new perception. I'm going to show you what I call self-evident experiments, and you will see for yourselves when I get to that point in the talk. And then I'm going to talk about the void of course moon, because having done the self-evident experiments, I can then talk about parts of the chart. So yes, primary and secondary motion, but also the void of course moon. And I'm also going to mention the idea of the 0 degree in each of the 12 signs of the zodiac. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Thema Mundi and some recent things I've realized about the Thema Mundi. And then I'm going to end with a couple of quotes on Timaeus, Plato's Timaeus, which helps put it all into context. And then I'll have some closing comments and conclusions, and that's when we can hopefully I'll be answering questions. So if you have any questions at that point, then well, you can shoot me down in flames, but hopefully you'll be interested by what I've said. Okay, so there's my book. Please do consider buying it because you know, I hopefully will, you know, I hope to do workshops based on what I've got today. This is a work in progress. So I've already got books 2 and 3 of this series in development. And today you're going to be seeing parts of that talked about. But the first book is ready to go. There it is. And I mean, you know, it's published. It's on Amazon right now. And if you want a nice copy, I've printed them beautifully with a very nice quality paper. And I signed them as well. And so if you want them from my website, you can buy them from my website. So why do we need a new perception? Well, I have a feeling that we've, and I'll try and go quickly through this bit, but basically 400 years ago, we had well, starting in 1572, Copernicus's theory, and then Galileo, and then leading up to Newton and Principia in 1687, we had the change of a perception into what became the scientific, materialistic, reductionist, objective viewpoint. And this really changed humanity, and it changed the way we saw the world. And it brought us to the modern age that we are now in. We're in this modern age, and we've had some fantastic advantages and advances in development of technologies, for example. But we are also majorly lacking, actually, though, in how to manage the Earth. The idea of sustainability, and so many things have been lost, and also there's been we lost what could be called the divine connection to the creation. So before Copernicus, then the way of seeing the world was with a divine connection to creation. That is to say, right the way from the development of Sumerian, Mesopotamian, Babylonian astrology, and right the way through to up until Copernicus, then one could access the creation with perception, and it was just there for us all the time. And this is why traditional astrology has got some really amazingly deep spiritual insights. And this goes right up to William Lilly, who was still living in the Renaissance, and he understood the divine connection as well. But then we changed this perception, and the human race, or humanity, went off on a bit of a sidetrack to nature, to the divine, to the way the world is natural, and we ended up, we're now 400 years further down this line. We've lost our way a bit, I feel. And I say we lost our way a bit because there's so much wrong in humanity right now. There's so many people who are anxious, depressed, disconnected, unspiritualized. There's so many things that seem to be missing and lacking. There's a lot of unfairness and a lot of imbalance, and just seems to be so many things that are just ill with the world. And I believe it's because we are out of balance. And the reason we are out of balance is because 400 years ago, we adopted the heliocentric viewpoint. Now, the heliocentric viewpoint, from geocentric to heliocentric. So for 2,000 plus years, we have the geocentric viewpoint. In fact, we could go back more than 2,000 years. But the geocentric viewpoint was that Earth was at the center. And all the planets were going around Earth. And this is the original perception. 400 years ago, we developed, thanks to telescopes, we developed the heliocentric perception, which when we looked at the planets, we could see that we were, in fact, the planets were going around the sun, including us. There was this sense of a complete shift of perception. But instead of the world going around us, instead of the planets going around us at the center, suddenly we were going around the sun. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm definitely not here to dispute science or any kind of developments on that level. But I am here to show you today the new perception that I believe we could adopt, which is what I call humanocentric perception. So we've had geocentric to start with for a couple of thousand years. We had heliocentric for 450 years. And now I'm going to introduce what I hope today could be called humanocentric. That is to say, if humanity adopted a new type of perception, we would be much more in tune with nature again. And I think this is very key for astrologers as well, for astrology, because I'm going to show it to you in the chart. So I'm going to show you these self-evident experiments, which will show you the different perception. So the heliocentric viewpoint for 450 years, astrology after the heliocentric viewpoint was became the norm, and it was very exciting at that time to start to pick things apart rather than just say, oh yes, the creator or the god or goddess or whatever you want to call it is the creation of everything. People were actually starting to zoom in, or zoom out, telescopes, microscopes, the idea of picking things apart to find out their actual constituent parts, which led to the 4 elements becoming the periodic table of elements with over 100 elements in them. It led to all the things that we've got today with regards to how astrology actually got pulled apart. And for about 200 years, particularly in the UK, astrology was literally blasted to smithereens. I mean, there was not hardly anything left of it by the time of the late 19th century. So around about 1870, we had people like Madame Blavatsky of the Theosophy Society publishing a new spiritual book called Isis Unveiled. And that was soon followed by Alan Leo publishing books called The Sun Signs. And he started that around about 1895. But what he was doing was building a new type of astrology, or he was reconstituting astrology as he found it, but building it on the very thing that had pulled the original spiritual astrology apart. So spiritual astrology was geocentric right up until Copernicus and Newton, and then heliocentric became the way of seeing the world, and Alan Leo was rebuilding astrology on a heliocentric perception. That is to say, yes, we're going around the sun, which is kind of a sort of off kilter. As I will explain to you today, as you will see, it's a slightly off kilter way of looking at the world. So I'm going to show you that anyway as we go along. So why the new perception? Well, this is what started me off, and this is a quote by Robert Zoller of Project Hindsight, and he said back in 2003, he published in this book, Tools and Techniques for Medieval Astrologer. He said, the complete study of astrology consists of not merely studying the writings of the ancients, but penetrating their inner meaning and rediscovering their perceptual mode. To see the world as the ancients did, to understand their metaphysics. So this is what really got me going, because I've often thought, well, there's the traditional astrology camp, there's the modern psychological astrology camp, how there must be a unifier that brings it all together. Well, the unifier, yes, there is. And it's perception. It's how do we see the world around us? And as astrologers, of course, our tool is the chart. So how can we see a perceptual shift within the chart? And I'm going here to show you all that today. So a total shift of consciousness. Now, I just want you to have a think for a minute before I really go any further. What do you think? What does consciousness mean for you? Okay, and just have a think about that, right? Because I'm going to show you some things in a minute that are really going to define how I see it to be slightly different. Okay, and the realization I'm trying to bring across to you here is that the whole art of astrology was going on for more than 2,000 years, and And then there was this shift from the geocentric to the heliocentric. And it moved us outside of our center, because when we were geocentric, we were at our center and the world was all around us in the space that we were in. That is the geocentric viewpoint. And I'll explain that in a minute. But by going heliocentric, we drifted away from first person perspective and we went towards second and third person perspective. And so the original divine connection to astrology is in the first person perspective. And I'm going to show you that today. And I'm going to show it to you with the chart. So as the modern age of science has predominated over the last 350 to 400 years, astrologers have been caught up somewhat in believing and practicing the heliocentric perspective. And they shifted away from, or even forgot, that they've had the blissful divine center of the geocentric, which I'm going to show you today, which enhances the art and understanding of one's place in the universe. Okay. So each of us is at our center and we are looking outwards. And each of us has our own world circling around us, which is our sphere of influence or our orb of effect. And the wholeness of the birth horoscope surrounds our space and activates our five senses, such that we are at the center of our chart. I'll be explaining this more as we go along. So the actual natal horoscope that we all use today is cast from the geocentric viewpoint. Generally, it is the geocentric viewpoint. And we talk about the timing of the first breath, which is the infusion of ether into the body that then develops consciousness. So the ether is like pneuma or pneuma, which is the breath or the spirit of life. And pneuma is prana, so that's the same thing. And I do believe that Carl Jung developed the word psyche, or took the word psyche as based on what pneuma is, the breath of life and the spirit of life as well. So it's this idea of connecting breath as life, and so I'm going to show you that as well, because we're going to be talking about that as well. And so we're going to I'm going to show you, by showing you the geocentric awareness, I'm hoping to introduce or reintroduce to you the idea of a unified spiritual oneness, which can bring together a whole experience of the world to our center, as if we are looking out again and everything is going on around us. And this is quite a wonderful experience, as I hope you will understand. So what is the new perception? The new perception is primary motion is awareness, and secondary motion is consciousness. And that is straight taking to the chart and looking at the chart and realizing what the two different motions of the chart are. So I'm about to with you now to take it back to the idea at the beginning, which is the moment of birth, or the moment that the chart is cast. So what is happening in the chart and how can it be explained? And in explaining it, we can define a new perception. So an example chart is right now, it's today's chart. This is cast for where I am in the UK. So at 4 p.m. today, this was the chart. And so by taking it down to the beginning, I'm going to show you primary motion. So just to recap with you quickly what primary motion and secondary motion are by looking at a chart. Primary motion is the fact that our planet is turning on its own axis. Okay, 24 hours it makes a complete circle, and that is what creates the four angles of the chart at the moment of birth. Okay, so that's ascendant and descendant axis, midheaven and IC axis, and then of course from that the 12 houses. Okay, so the primary motion creates the four angles and 12 houses. All right, secondary motion is the zodiacal motion, which is the movement of the planets around the ecliptic. And of course, the moon's on its own axis with the nodes, you know, slightly, not exactly on the ecliptic, but you know what I mean by that. And so basically, I'm going to show you now the difference between awareness and consciousness. So the self-evident experiments are the idea of showing you ascendant, descendant, midheaven, and IC. and basically that's going to be bringing into perspective how what primary motion is what awareness is, because as I will explain. Okay. So primary motion is the planets are constantly moving in two distinct ways, or the chart is moving in two distinctly different ways. Primary motion demonstrates the movement through the sky. Okay, so the 4 angles and the 12 houses are the movement through the sky. So as we are standing on planet Earth, all of us now standing here alive on Earth, and we look up at the sky, we are experiencing primary motion because the planet is turning. All right, and secondary motion means we have to look out, way out into space in order to understand secondary motion. We have to look at the ecliptic, which denotes the movement through space of the planets going in the different direction to primary motion. So the two movements are known as the diurnal movement, which is the diurnal, which is primary motion, and the zodiacal movement, which is secondary motion. So I believe that the primary motion, the diurnal motion, is the basic source of our awareness, and that secondary motion, or zodiacal motion, is the basic source of our consciousness. So a chart, when you look at a chart, it looks a little like two wheeling types of cogs or cosmos mechanics, as diagrammatically one appears to rotate within the other. So all planets, including the sun, rise in the east, in the northern hemisphere anyway, and this is a clockwise motion. All planets from our perspective on Earth are going around the ecliptic in a counterclockwise motion. So if you were to sit on a meditation cushion and look to the east, in 24 hours, everything would have risen up and over the top by you would see everything rising up in the east. So that's the primary motion constantly shifting as it moves. Okay. And so there's a nice quote, I'll say it now, but I'll probably say it again at the end, by Calcadus, who was the translator of the Timaeus in around about 321 AD. He translated the Timaeus from Greek to Latin, and he has a nice quote, which is, "The Creator gave mankind eyes to see, so that we could observe the wheeling movements of the mind and the provenance of the sky." So it's the idea that just the fact we have 5 senses means that we can observe the wheeling movements of our minds. And because, as I'm about to show you, there's a lot more to this change of perception. I'm taking you further and further into this idea. Okay. So how does primary and secondary motion, how do we relate the new perception, which is I'm suggesting is found in primary and secondary motion? How do we take this perception? And so let's have a look, right? Primary motion is directly associated to the first breath taken at the birth moment, okay? Because primary motion is in the chart represented as the 4 angles and the 12 houses. So in order to be born, we have to take a breath, okay? And that is the time of birth. So we will have our natal chart. And when we breathe in at our first breath, everyone says that, don't they? I've studied astrology for many years, and it's this idea that, oh yeah, I take a breath in, and that's the birth moment. Yeah, like that's a moment. But that when you were born, it's the chart is created from that. So as I've already explained, the 4 angles, the ascendant, descendant, midheaven, and nadir, show the rotation of our planet Earth as it rotates about its own axis once every 24 hours. So the 4 angles are actually giving us the location of the latitude and longitude of our birth, because they kind of zoom in on the point. So you follow the angles into the point at the center of the chart, and that is the latitude and longitude point of birth, because the 4 angles mark on the planet where you landed, where you incarnated, as it were, or where your spirit became, your soul became manifest out of spirit. So the birth moment is when spirit, having manifested soul, as it descends through the spheres, is then born through the moon and it enters into the sublunary sphere in a physical corporeal form. As the infant is born out of the mother and enters into this world, what does it experience first? Well, it experiences pure awareness, because consciousness has yet to be formed. So I think it's fairly safe to say that awareness is the fact that I am alive, that you are alive, we all have our being, and that is awareness, and which is the very act of being alive. So the awareness is the first thing at birth that we experience. So if awareness is the first thing, because we open our eyes, and what's this? What is this? Well, I'm alive. So it's awareness. So when we cast the natal chart based on the location of birth and on the timing of the first breath, what are we actually doing? We are recording the very first moment of awareness of the individual. So from this point forward, we are going to be using all the techniques of astrology, i.e. the mapping of the individual's life journey, their evolution, their self-understanding, and everything that we do today with astrology. So we're going to be doing transits, progressions, and all the techniques, all the toolbox of astrologers' techniques from that point forwards in order to work out the chart. We work with the chart, which is that first moment. And that is the mapping of the development of consciousness, because consciousness starts from moment one, but awareness is the absolute beginning. So the perception of realizing what awareness is, rediscovering awareness as separate from consciousness, which I'm about to show you, is to then say, well, we've got 2 things here. Yeah, we've got awareness is always there, and then consciousness is everything else that moves away and outwards from us all the time. It's always moving away from us. But we're developing it as well. It's in our space, but consciousness is formed out of memory and time, okay, as amongst other things. So we are starting with this initial state of awareness, and once that state has been established, an individual has been born and has a chart that it can call its own. Consciousness is going to start growing and being created out of the state of pure awareness. So the moment that the individual becomes self-aware is the moment that the 4 angles of the chart are created, and those 4 angles are pointing into the ecliptic. So the 4 angles at the point of are points of awareness, and they point outwards, way out to the secondary motion. Okay, so they land in infinity. They are moving outwards because, as you will see, we are in infinity and all is mind. And I'm about to show you all this. Okay, so furthermore, the 4 angles are also creating the 12 houses, or the 12 places, which are the encasement around the individual's awareness, as I'm going to show you the encasement very shortly. So the primary motion of the earth as the individual is born into and on the earth and of the earth, and becomes a part of earth, which is shown in the chart as primary motion, awareness. Primary motion is the movement of this planet that we exist upon, is the movement of our awareness. Because without the planet, we would not have awareness. We would not be alive. So this is the diurnal motion of the primary emotion, whether it is light or dark at the time of birth. And this is, I'm hoping to show you stuff today that's really going to get people thinking. And I would very much like to, by the way, because I'm about to show you something completely amazing, and I would very much like you to open up forums and talk to me. Let's get talking about this, because it's very exciting, and it's very Pluto in Aquarius, you know, all these sort of things can start to be discussed. All right. So let's do workshops. Let's do, you know, get me giving talks, more talks. Come and invite me to do stuff. You know, I'm Zoom at the moment in the UK, but come and find me. You know, you'll find me, invite me, and I'll talk to you for hours about this. And we can do all sorts of things, experiments and all sorts. It's very exciting. So, okay. So we can look at things like light and dark at the time of birth is the key to how the individual's life can be manifested. The 4 angles in the 12 houses are now moving out of the earth and into the space around the earth at birth. So I breathe in and I enter the space that I am in. That's the birth. That's life, right? But it's moving those points, that point of location. I am in the universe at the same time. I'm in it at the same time. So I'm moving outwards, and I move out into the area of the ecliptic where we have the zodiacal signs. Because the chart, well, we hold a piece of paper with the chart, this 2D map. It's actually a vast universe, a vast solar system, if you like, or it's a map of the universe, yeah, that describes us. So therefore, each of us, must be our integral part of that universe. And if you see it as all as mind, then everything becomes very clear, because in fact, we are at one with the universe. And I'm going to show you all this now. Okay, so it's very interesting. So, all right. So it's the ecliptic is the band in which all the other planets are moving through in a different direction to the primary motion. It is all the movement of the other planets that are creating the movement of time, as in transits, which is the development of consciousness. So secondary motion is the development of consciousness and time. And together, primary motion and secondary motion make up the complete natal chart. Right. I can move on to the next slide now. How can we experience it? How can we experience this? So I've been talking to you about primary, secondary motion. And now how can we experience it? Well, we can, because I have something to show you. They are called self-evident experiments. Now, I'm about to show you 4 experiments, okay, that you really must do these. It's imperative that you do these. If you just look at me on the screen and don't do what I'm asking you to do, then the chances are is that you're not going to get it, okay? But if you do the experiments and take the time to do them, follow me as I go through them with you, then the likelihood is you're going to get this shift of perception. And once you've got this shift of perception, well, let's see what happens, okay? Because I think you're going to enjoy it. In fact, I don't know anybody who doesn't really enjoy what's about to happen, okay? So, self-evidence experiments. I'm going to show you 4. The first one is called pointing at your true nature. The second one is called two-way pointing. The third one is called the closed eyes experiment. And the fourth one is called the all-seeing eye. Okay. So let's go through them one at a time. And be prepared now to follow me. Okay. In fact, I might even turn the share screen off. I don't know if that will work, actually. If I turn the share screen off, you can see me better. Because at the moment, I'm imagining that I'm probably a little box on the screen. But actually, if you are watching this webinar, then I think you can stretch it. So if you can stretch the screen and make the PowerPoint slides smaller in order to make my screen a bit bigger, then you might see how I show you the experiments a bit better. Would that work, Laurie? Is that something like that?
I think it might be better if you stop sharing, if you want people to see
Should we try
the
that?
bigger version of you. And because you
Yeah.
can just reshare again after the exercises.
Okay. But just can I quickly check with you though? If everybody's watching, it's got 2 images, haven't they? They've got the PowerPoint slides and me in a window, and there's a slider, isn't there, with Zoom where one goes bigger and like that, right? So if you pull it across and get a slide, because I've got all my notes up.
That worked for me. So yeah, you can do that too. I just
do that too. Can we do that like that? So I hope people understand what I'm saying. Yeah. So I'll keep the PowerPoint open. I'll keep the share screen open. But if you recognize that what I'm talking about there, this is the idea of the slider or the view. If you can it'll just help, because I'm going to be showing you stuff with my hands. Okay. So, all right, and I want you to follow. Okay, so it's quite key that you follow the experiments. All right. So pointing at your true nature. Okay. So in order to do this experiment, I need you to create a pointing finger like this. Yeah, like a finger that you would point around the world with, pointing at things. Okay. And so hold your pointing finger in place like this. And now I want you to consider this. When you point anywhere in the world, so if you point at something, so in the space that you are in now, right, the room that you are in, yeah, I want you to point out, you point at appearances, okay? You point at things outside of yourself that appear to you, all right? So you are distant from what you are looking at, and you see things or you see objects, all right? So I want you to observe this. I want you to do, this is important, direct your attention at things by pointing at them. So I'll give you an example. I'm in my astrology study room and I'm pointing around, and if I point up, I can point at a ceiling fan with some lights in it. I can point to a picture on the wall. I can point to some bookshelves. I can point to some CDs. I can point to a chair that I have clients in, right? I can turn around actually, and I can point to a statue here. There's a Buddha statue. I can point to another picture. I can point to a box. So I want you to do that in the space that you are in right now. And as you do it, note what flows up and flows through your consciousness, because you have a name for it and you immediately recognize its shape and its color and its form. The form is the form of what it is, immediately comes up into your consciousness. For example, right, it's just I want you to do that 3 or 4 times around the room, okay, the space that you're in now, right? So you could point at your computer screen, say, there's my computer, right? Whatever, right? There's my keyboard. There's some books. There's my phone. I want you to do that just a few times around the room that you're in, okay? So point at the shapes and colors of the room that you are in. Give each of them a name. The name will automatically come to you because you already know what that object is. And take note of what your consciousness tells you that each object is. For example, if I point at the CDs that are over there, you can't see them in the camera, right? But if I point at the CDs over there, I immediately start thinking of the music inside each CD, the band name, the title of the album, etc., etc. It just comes up immediately into my consciousness, right? Stuff's flowing through it all the time, because let's face it, the consciousness is this vast space and it's constantly being filled with input of material, okay, about the space that I'm in, all right? So I point at book titles, I think of what's in the book, etc., etc., okay? So having done that and become familiar just with it, so you're just relating to your consciousness and what's around you in your space around you, okay? I now want you to take your pointing finger and I want you to point at your foot, okay? And acknowledge that's your foot. So there is my foot. I can see I've got, slippers and socks on. There's my foot, right? And so acknowledge with yourself you've got shoes, socks, colors of the sock, whatever, right? Whatever the situation is, point at that. Then I want you to point at your knee, okay? And say, oh, there's my knee, right? Yes, it's covered in fabric, it's like a pair of jeans, whatever. It's rounded in shape and form, okay? My knee, yeah? It's a part of me, right? I want you now point at your torso, right? This area here, right? Point at your torso with your pointing finger. Point like this at your torso. If I look down here, oh yeah, I've got my talismans here. I've got a thick jumper, yeah? All right? And now I want you to take that pointing finger, and you've been pointing it all around at all these different objects. And so in all these instances so far, your attention has been directed outwards at objects, including parts of yourself as objects. Would you agree with me? I hope everyone's agreeing with me. Now, I want you to point to where others see your face. So I want you to point the pointing finger at your own space that others see your face. So hold the pointing finger pointing back at yourself like this. Can you see that? Right? So do that and just relax your hand So you can hold it up there for a little while, because we're going to keep it there just for a bit while I explain some things to you. So I want you to ask yourself at this point, with the pointing finger pointing back, where is my face? Now, you have to exclude cameras and reflective surfaces. So you don't think of things, you know, right? Just search for your facial features. Notice how impossible it is to perceive them directly with your own eyes. Okay. Your face remains unseen because there is no need for it within your direct perception. So what I'm doing to you now is I'm showing you your birth moment, because this is the moment that the chart was cast. You re-experiencing your birth moment, because the chart is cast that will guide you through life. You're pointing back at the space now that you're looking out from. And when you were born, you didn't know you had a head, you didn't know you had a body, you had a space that you were born into. And I'm showing you to point back to that space to rediscover it. Okay? So you might like to consider that you've never seen your own face without the help of a reflective surface, such as a mirror or a pool of water or modern tech like a smartphone camera. I want you to cast all those aside and ask yourself, what do I see, having pointed around and about all these objects that have names, forms, shapes, and colors? When I bring it back to point back at the space that I look out from, what do I see? Do I see my face, or do I see space? So what you're actually doing now is looking inwards. You're turning the direction of your attention around from the objects out there to you, the subject, to the place that you are looking out of. And do you see anything like an object in that space? Is there an object that has color or shape or any movement? Well, when I look into the place where others see my face, I find no color or shape, but I do find a boundless capacity or awareness on this side of my pointing finger. When I point back now, I'm pointing at a boundlessness, a huge capacity. I'm actually pointing back at the fact that the whole world is inside my space. In the space I point back to now, everything is pointing back, at the space that I'm looking out of. This capacity is empty, clear, transparent. It is self-evidently awake and very aware. I'm alive. So are you. We're all alive. And we're pointing back at the space that we're looking out of. Because have you ever actually seen your own head without mirrors and etc.? Have you? No. Because you're in a space that you look out of. And you look around, and that space is 5 senses. That you're in that world around you, you're full of the senses. Okay, so keep pointing finger back here. So you're constantly reminding yourself of this. So at the same time, the capacity is full of everything that is happening in it. My finger, I can see my finger, that's in the capacity. My view of the scene beyond, all the sounds, all the feelings, everything comes back to this center, the geocentric center. Because I'm at my center now. And this is how the ancients used to see the world. This is how the divine connection to the creation. Because by pointing back and realizing that you are at your center of your world, then everything in your world is in you. It's all in the mind. All is mind. So this is the origins of Buddhism, Sufism, Hinduism, but Christianity's got it as well. I'll get to that in a minute. I'll show you all this, okay? But I'm showing it for astrologers. This is for astrology, okay? Because we need the perception, right? We need a Pluto and Aquarius revolution. And I'm showing you what I think is the revolution that we can carry forwards, okay? So I am now seeing who I really am by pointing back. I am seeing the boundless one at the very heart of myself. And so are you. I'm really hoping that you're doing this right now. Because if you're just looking at the screen going, what's he on about? Then you're going to come up with all sorts of judgments about me. But if you're doing this experiment actually at home on yourself right now, you're going to be getting a very interesting experience. Okay? So the one in whom the world is happening. Okay? The world is happening in you right now. The world happens in you. And it happened in you at the moment you were born. So the birth chart captures that moment that the world is happening in you. And from that point forwards, you start moving forwards. Okay? So my question to you at this point is, what do you find? By pointing back at this space that you're looking out of, what do you find? Are you also looking out of this wide open, crystal clear awareness? Well, it's beautiful, isn't it? Quite amazing when you suddenly realize that I've never actually seen my own head. I've never actually seen my own face. But I look at where all my senses are receiving into this wonderful space that actually contains absolutely everything. All right. So this is pointing at your true nature. And by pointing at your true nature, you will rediscover your connection to nature and you'll rediscover your divinity. And this is where, as astrologers, we can now start to develop our new perception. Okay. The next experiment. So this is called two-way pointing. Okay. So yes, we've had our pointing finger, we're pointing it outwards at the world. Yeah. And then we pointed it back at ourselves. But now I want you to take the other finger of your other hand, and I want you to point it outwards like this. So what you're doing is two-way pointing like that. Okay. So you're pointing back. So turn. We go. Two-way pointing. Right. Now this is starting to explain to you the angles of the chart. Right. So ascendant and descendant. They're MC and IC. Right. There they are. Boop, 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 right. Go like this. Okay. So index finger outwards at the world, and with your other index finger, point inwards towards the space that you are looking out of. Got that? Like that. Yeah. The finger pointing outwards point to the scene full of countless shapes and colors. Of course, it's out there. It's a complicated picture. In fact, in Zen, they say it's the 10,000 things. The 10,000 things happen at once. Because when you realize that you're in a space that you're in, then there's 10,000 things happening in consciousness at any one time. Because if I sit in a room full of things around me, I've got everything fires off all the time. Yeah, that's 10,000 things flowing through my river of consciousness at any one moment. But when I redefine the awareness at center, well, things start to calm down a bit, right? Because I'm suddenly going, actually, there's a space and it's manifesting. Everything's just going around me, right? This manifestation. I can now choose to do what I want with it. Okay. So it's quite complicated out there, but you can find peace within. Yeah. So the more time you spend looking at it, the more there is to see. And most of it is hidden, obscured by other things in one way or another, you know, because there's through that, you know, going through doorway, through, you know, space, movement, distance, all sorts of things, right? So the view in is different, right? Here, the space is not hidden at all. In fact, you can see all of it and all at once. It is right here, and it is what I am. And it's what you are too, because when you're doing this, you're looking back at your space. And it's the part of you that you can never lose because you've got it now, right? You've now discovered it. And what could be simpler than this? It's beautiful, right? And start to work with this idea that consciousness is the movement, the secondary motion. Think of primary motion as the captured moment of birth, of time in your chart, and then see it as everything moving outwards all the time. Okay. There. So there's no division. I just wanted to show you there's no division. There's no dividing line between the space. Okay. So the next experiment is called the closed eyes experiment. Now for this, I need to actually ask you to close your eyes. Okay. Now I'm probably, you know, I'm going to close my eyes as well, but I'll probably also be reading from my notes. But I want you to, when I ask you to close your eyes, I want you to actually close your eyes, because that's doing the experiment. Okay. And then when you've done it, we will get to the next stage. Okay. So I want you to keep your eyes closed it'll be for about a couple of minutes. Okay. but just please do follow the experiment in order to get the most from my talk. Okay, so so I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Close your eyes. All right, now please keeping them closed. Okay, you can ask yourself a question with your eyes closed. Who or what are you with your eyes closed? You can ask yourself another question. How big are you with your eyes closed? Another question is, what shape are you with your eyes closed? So these are quite interesting, aren't they? Because you see, can you actually say how big you are with your eyes closed? Well, technically you can't, because you're actually, with your eyes closed, you're in a very vast interior, imaginative inner space, right? So the bigness of things, the shape, can you, with your eyes closed now, can you define your shape? Probably not, but you can define that you're in a vast interior realm or space or inner space. So have a look inside with your eyes closed to see what you find where you are. Okay, so look around with your eyes closed. What I mean by that is keeping your eyes closed, just kind of get a feeling for things, right? Well, I'm sitting in a chair. Now, can I see the chair with my eyes closed? No, I can't see the chair, but I know that I'm in something because I'm getting a lot of sensory responses. I'm getting a lot of sensation, okay? Sensation is the 5 senses. Can you hear things? Yes, well, you can hear my voice, and maybe you can hear other things in where you are now. Maybe the dog's barking outside, or the phone's ringing, or things are appearing in your space with your eyes closed. The birds singing outside. You go into the garden, walk down through into the park, and you can hear birds twittering in the trees, or, you know, beautiful things. You might hear the wind blowing through the trees or something, you know, wonderful moments where the senses are bringing you things. They're bringing this into your center space, okay? They're bringing it to you, but you must keep your eyes closed for now, okay? So have a look for your boundaries right now. Where are the boundaries? With your eyes closed. Very important to keep your eyes closed. Please do keep them closed. Look for your boundaries. Seek out the boundaries when you are hugely within, yeah? It's a vast space, isn't it? Because interestingly enough, right, when you dream at night, your eyes are closed. So the dreams that we have, we travel vast spaces in our dreams. Astral projection, astral flying, the space and time that we cover in our dream world. And we spend a good half of our lives, or, you know, almost half of our lives with our eyes closed, because we enter the dream world. And of course, the dreams are very tied into astrology as well, because you can see your transits in dreams. So the boundaries where your eyes are closed are vast and infinite as well, because what you're actually looking at is this vast infinite space of creation. Okay, you're entering a creation space. You're in a creation space. So don't rely on memory, on what others say about you, but just rely on what is given at this present moment. Okay, so you must rely on your direct experience of yourself as you settle into this eyes closed experience. All right. With your eyes closed, here are a few more questions for you to consider. Do you have a name with your eyes closed? How old are you with your eyes closed? Are you male or female? Are you in fact human? Keeping your eyes closed. Yes, we know all these things, right? Of course. But with your eyes closed, you are in that super creative space. What I'm actually showing you is how to manifest, okay? And this is actually the basis of the law of attraction and manifestation, creative manifestation, okay? But I'm just showing you now as a beginner, ideas for you to consider, right? Because it's going to be quite marvelous when you start to use the chart with everything I'm showing you, okay? And all your astrological training and everything you've learned about astrology fits in with this beautifully, as you will discover. So can you define your shape with all the evidence that you have? Can you count how many toes you've got with your eyes closed, right? Is your experience now of a boundless space, an infinite space of experience? Well, for me, yes, I do get that. It's full of various sensations and thoughts, thoughts just flow through it, yeah, and feelings. But to be in a body now, what does it mean? Well, I'm actually showing you the space of your soul. I'm showing you infinite space. And from this point forward, you are now immortal. Okay, keeping your eyes closed, please, for now. But you're entering a space of recognizing your immortality. And in astrology, we talk a lot about reincarnation. We talk about life after life. Well, we never have left it, right? We are always in the soul space. And now I'm showing you the soul space, okay? So the next question is, are you in fact as spacious now as when your eyes were open? Don't open them yet, but when they were open, and you did that pointing back experiment, and you pointed at the space that you're in, well, is that space still there? I would like to suggest that it is, okay? So with your eyes closed, do you notice that your experience is such that you can't technically define yourself right now, because you don't have left and right, you don't have up and down, you don't have shape or size, okay? Your experience is that you are formless and edgeless capacity that is filled with all kinds of things, sensations, thoughts, feelings, and sounds. With your eyes closed, there isn't one thing you can see, which is who you are right now. You can see that you are space. What is happening in your space is less decorative than when your eyes are open. So, having checked all this out with yourself, very shortly, it's going to be time to open your eyes again, okay? And as you do, I want you to think about creation myths, okay? I want you to think about what a creation myth is. So in science, early science, they were telling us about the Big Bang. There was nothing, yeah? And then suddenly there was everything, right? And I'm still hoping your eyes are closed at this point and you've been enjoying the meditative space that you've discovered there, because it really is rather beautiful once you just start to realize the space you're in. But think about the flood. Think about the Big Bang. Think about all creation myths, how things are generated from nothing to light, okay? And then I want you to now, 3, 2, 1, I want you to open your eyes and open your eyes and your back. And suddenly everything went whoosh and it all came back. Most importantly, what you do recognize now is what you have returned to is measurement. So to really get the idea of the chart, right, is to understand that by opening our eyes and having our sensory responses, suddenly we get measurement back. How far is it between here and here? Well, when my eyes were closed, it was infinite. How far is it from up and down? Well, when my eyes were closed, there was, So the chart is an eyes opened experience. But in order to really get the chart and the reason for the soul being where it is, where we are now experiencing our life and having that beautiful awareness at center, is to recognize the space that we are in. And I've just shown you it, okay? So I'm hoping now you're going, oh, that's really interesting. Well, you might not be, because I hope you followed the experiment and I hope you're getting this. Okay, so the space that you just became aware of stays the same, right? Eyes closed, eyes open. You saw the space with your finger pointing back, and then you closed your eyes, and it's the same space. It's just filled with embellishments and decor and things, the 10,000 things of Zen. So as you do, right, you open your eyes and everything floods back in, okay, which is creation myths. So, wonderful, right? So what is it at your center is everything. The whole universe is at your center. That's the chart as well, because we hold a map that shows us the whole universe. But then the map is me, right? My birth moment, I look at my chart and I go, wow, there's me. There's a graphic representation of the whole universe on a page, but it speaks me. And the astrologer, when they talk to me, speaks about me. They speak about my universe, my whole universe. Yeah. And then I've just seen it now. I've actually found my whole universe. There it is. Okay. So it's about recognizing that and taking that on board, because it's the new perception. This is the Pluto and Aquarius perception that I think we need. I say collectively. I do think we're going to get a lot from doing this or recognizing it. Okay. So the whole universe is within and without. As above, so below. Opens eyes, open, closed eyes. As above is so below is as above. As within is so without. All the esoteric maxims of the inside and the outside and the up and the down are all found in the infinite space. So now you've become aware of it. It's a wonderful realization. So there is a spacious capacity at the center that is as obvious with your eyes closed as with your eyes open. And I'll take you back to the chart again. What happened when you were born? You were born out of into what? I opened my eyes and I was in a space. That was my birth moment. That's what the chart is, because you had awareness at the beginning, primary motion, and it stretched out into secondary. All the angles moved out into secondary motion to connect to the vastness of the universe. But the universe is in as well as outside. It's inside and outside simultaneously. So I'm going to say now, welcome to the void, because I've just shown you the void. And the void actually is at the heart of all the religions. But I'm not going to become religious with this. I'm just going to tell you that there's this space. All right. So that's the closed eyes experiment. Now, the next experiment, we're moving on. I hope you enjoyed that one. We're now moving on to the all-seeing eye. Okay. So this is my favorite experiment. And this really just quite amazing. I just absolutely love this, right? And I am sure you will too. Okay. So I'm now going to show you how to open your third eye. All right. Because we have two eyes, don't we? There they are. Everyone's got two eyes. Everyone agree? They're my two eyes. I've always seen the world through my two eyes. But of course, people talk about the third eye, and they've got many different methods and techniques, but I'm going to show you the absolute simplest. And it's instantaneous, and it will probably make you laugh, actually, because it's that good. So to bring your attention home to your third eye, I want you to hold your hands out in front of you as if they were a pair of glasses or binoculars that you're going to put on. Have a look through them. You can do that. So just do that with your finger, right? So you're just doing that, right? Okay. And you can see through them already, can't you? But I want you to put them to, like you're going to put them on. So put them on. Do this, okay? And you see two holes, yeah, that you've put on, yeah? There's a different view in each hole, yeah? Now, I want you to slowly put them on like this, yeah? You saw the two different holes, you put them on, two views through each one. I can look through them when they're away from my face. I look through them, I can see two different views. I put them on. Now, what happens to the dividing line between the two holes? Because there were two, weren't there? Two eyes were looking through the two holes. Does it start to disappear? What it does when you do this, you start to open out your fingers and thumbs like this to create like a diver's mask. And the two view holes have disappeared, leaving one undivided view, an edgeless space that you're looking out of. Because I have my two eyes. I've always looked at the world through my two eyes. So I just define them by making a pair of binoculars, but I open them out and it becomes one. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm like, there's one space there, not two. I've always seen the world through two, but then there's this extra one now. There's a new one. Here it is. Open your hands slightly wider like this. And I'm in this one space. That's quite interesting. It's an undivided, edgeless space, right the way around the edge. So bring your hands up. You can wave your fingers at yourself. I can see the fingers on the edges of the space. Okay, but I now want you to pull your hands right back so you can't see them. So that means putting them back like this. Yeah, so you can't. Well, like that. All right. Pull your hands back so you can't see them. But I am aware that my hands are there. I have awareness that my hands are there, but I have to bring them forwards until they come onto the edge again to be conscious of them. So awareness and consciousness. Gemini rules the hands. There they are. Bring them out in front of me, but they vanish up my arms into the space. I look and they vanish. My hands vanish into the space. But this space, what is this? It's an undivided, edgeless space. So I want you to observe this edge that you've got, this field of vision all the way around the edge. Okay? You cannot look directly at it. In fact, it's quite amazing because you know it's there, right? And it's orb. It's an orb, orb-like or spherical, sphere-like or orb-like. It's an edge to it. But every time you move to try and catch it, it moves with you. So, find that edge. Where? Oh, better not sail off the edge of the world, but I'll go looking for it. Oh, no, didn't find it. Sorry. I'll try another continent over there. Oh, no, look out. I'm going to sail off the edge of the world. I think you get, that's a bit of a joke, but I hope you get what I'm saying. There's this edge, okay? Right? So the edge around the edge, right? But it's a sphere and it's an orb, right? So it has an orb. I'm inside my own orb. Everything's in orb. Everything's in orb. And what does it fade off into? What does it fade off into? What does this fade? When I create this orb or sphere around myself, this beautiful edge in which I am in, and the whole world is in it. The whole world is in this sphere of me. Yeah. So I move with it. So, and the whole world enters into my sphere all the time. Yeah. So it's like I move my hands to the edge and I can create this edge. It's really quite amazing because everything's in it. All my experiences in it, all my senses are in it. And yet it's vast. Yeah, because the whole world is in it, but it's got an edge as well. So what does it fade off into? Because I'll pull my hands back and the hands vanish, then the edge really is there, isn't it? And what's back there? Well, what is behind it? Well, there's nothing behind it. There's a no thing. There's nothing, or there's nowhere either. There's a now here, or a here now, a now, a nowhere, a no thing, a nothing. There's a void right behind it, right behind the edge. There's the edge that contains my whole world, that is measurement, all the measurement of everything. Yet behind it, there's this vastness. But I discovered the vastness already because I closed my eyes earlier, and that was my dreaming space. That was where I create from, my dreams. And it's where I create everything from, actually, because when I move my sphere, when I move my orb, then the whole world comes into it and everything's flowing around the edge. Everything appears and manifests around the edges as I move with it. Okay? So see where it vanishes, right? So things disappear, but then how wide is the eye? This is the third eye. I had two eyes to see, but then I had a third eye that appeared. Yeah. Now in Hinduism, in the chakra diagrams, you've got the third eye. It's just, they have all these beautiful lotuses, don't they? Lots of multi-petal lotuses, 1,000 petals up here, you know. But this one is just a round circle with 2 petals. Yeah, 2 petals. Uh-huh. 2 petals, 1 petal, 1 petal, 2 petals, 1 petal. The third eye, right? Like the Hindu, if you look at you'll see what I mean if you look at the chakra diagram. Okay. So there we go, right? And basically, wide vastness, everything is in it. It's wider than the world. So I look out through how many eyes now? Well, I have an all-seeing eye because everything is in it. It's all-seeing, yeah. And when other people see, when they look at, you know, when other people look at you, they see you with your 2 eyes, but you can, from your point of view, you can see the world through 1 eye. Now, you know, it's just an idea that you can take a fresh look at yourself with this understanding of being in this orb. It's quite nice. So it's rather obvious. It's rather wonderful. Once you discovered it, it's wonderful. Okay. And now I'm going to give you what this is. This is what Plotinus would call the one. Okay, so in Greek philosophy, Plotinus was made a reference to the one all the time, and this is the one, because the one, and this is from the Enneads. Okay, from the Enneads. This is a quote, a Plotinus quote. The one is not, so to speak, imperceptive, but everything of it is in it and with it. It is entirely self-discerning. Life is in it and with it. It is entirely, life is in it, and all things are in it. And it is self-knowledge itself, a self-knowledge by a kind of synthesis, being in eternal stasis and in a knowledge otherwise than knowledge according to the nous. So that's Plotinus telling us about a bit about the one. Okay, it must be authentically, another quote, it must be authentically a unity, not merely something elaborated into unity, and so in reality no more than unity's counterfeit. It will debar all telling and knowing, except that it may be described as transcending being. That's 4.1, Ennead 4.1. The one is all things and no one of them. Another quote. The one is all things and no one of them. The source of all things is not all things, and yet it is all things in a transcendental sense. All things, so to speak, having run back to it. That's 2.1, Ennead 2.1. And all that is not one is conserved by the virtue of the one, and from the one derives its characteristic nature. If it had not attained such unity as is consistent with being made up of multiplicity, we could not affirm its existence. If we are able to affirm the nature of single things, this in virtue of the unity, the identity even within each of them possesses. But the all-transcendent, utterly void of multiplicity, has no mere unity of participation, but is unity's self, independent of all else, as being that from which, by whatever means, all the rest take their degree of unity in their standing, near or far towards it. Basically, everything is in here, in your experience as well. I mean, in my experience, my whole world is inside here, but I'm hoping you're able to say that now as well, because this is the situation. You have this space, okay? And it is like the one. The all-seeing eye. So, there it is, Now, I hope that is quite interesting. That I'm hoping that this gives you loads to think about. And of course, I can't, my book has all the experiments in it again. So do please purchase the book from me, because I think you'll find it quite interesting. And let's carry on, because I'm going to show you some other things, right? Just to really put it into focus in the chart. Now, having shown you the experiments, you now are aware of the space. Let's have a quick look at the idea of charts and some of the things that I think we can discover. Okay, so firstly, I want to talk about the void of course moon. So why is it called the void of course moon? So when it happens, one is meant to go into, or best use, that moment of time before the moon changes into the next zodiac sign, to be content with what is, and quiet and meditative. Okay, quiet and meditative is a good idea. So when the moon goes void of course, as astrologers, just do the experiments, right? That's void of course. Because what would a navigator do in a ship? They set a course. It means the moon is setting a course. A navigator, a sailor of a ship, sets a course to sail towards something. Yeah. Now, on the vast horizon of sea sailing, then they'd be set a course into that space, between sky and sea. I'm just going that way. And they're going into like that, they're going into like, they're having aware of their space around them is like being aware of the void always there. So to set a course is to be a navigator or a sailor. But they're going into the void of course. But what is the void? Well, I would like to say that this is the time to access one's pure state of awareness, because the moon is no longer connecting to any other planets in the zodiacal motion or the secondary motion. And the moon has its own orbit anyway, with the nodes. It crosses the ecliptic. So it's on its own band, which is not the ecliptic, is it? So so therefore it's a satellite going around the Earth and is very keyed into the primary motion as well. Okay, so the moon is the first sphere that we encounter as well as we move outwards. So this space here is what I believe, and I do have to say this is a work in progress, okay, but I am hopefully the first person telling you this. So hopefully I will be asked to show this again, and I'm developing it all the time, and I'm going to publish books 2 and 3 very shortly. So I'm going to have, you know, quite a lot to show in workshops or conferences. If anybody wants to talk to me about this, please do, you know. But I believe from traditional astrology that when Ibn Arabi was talking about the celestial polished mirror, this is the celestial polished mirror, okay? Because everything is reflected in the mirror, right? I am just the universe reflected back at myself at the origin of source. So when I did all this pointing and I found the space, I'm just the mirror of my own mirror of the world, because everything that activates my consciousness is found in the world around me, but I've got my awareness is space at center. So I've got this beautiful primary motion going on, yeah, that stretches out all the time. The primary motion is breath, is pneuma, is prana, is the breath of life or the spirit. Now, Carl Jung went to Africa in 1925, and he was working with the African tribespeople in order to work out how they were. That's how he came back with psyche from pneuma and prana. He looked into the breath of life, what created life and movement. And out of that, he was also working with the idea of what became the unconscious is the void. So when you do this, that void is where the unconsciousness spills out around the edges, you know. So and having control of it as an astrologer, you actually want to have control of that, don't you? Right? I mean, don't we all? You know, don't we all want to have control of that? Yeah. I mean, you know, I want to speak to the gods. I do. I mean, I feel, having done this for a while now, I feel like I speak to the gods because I know thoughts are rising. In Buddhism, we have a thing called thoughts are rising. So you sit on the meditation cushion and you're breathing through your nose, right? You're feeling the sensation in your nose, following the breath. That keeps you in the present moment. But the consciousness is constantly flowing like this raging river, isn't it? But all you're meant to do is observe it. Yeah. What I've done now is shown you some really interesting experiments. And if you were to now combine that with meditation or breath work or anything, you combine it any way you like. You combine it with the chart. And now you can feel, when you see transits coming around, right? You can feel them moving through you, because that's what a transit is. It moves through you. Okay, so I don't actually go anywhere, but the world moves through me, right? So I'm still at my center. When I do geocentricity, which is what I'm showing you today, but I'm calling it now humanocentric. So humanocentricity is the idea that from the human perspective, we have developed a heliocentric perspective world, which is brilliant. Nothing wrong with that. But by going back to our geocentricity and finding that space at center, we become far more empowered. Okay, so this is actually about empowerment, right? So, and I can show you in another lecture, which I must do soon, by the way. I've got loads to show you today. And how can I fit it all in an hour? You know, I mean, just ask me to do talks or workshops. Please do. You know, any groups I'll do anywhere for anybody. Zoom. I've got quite a lot of lectures now, so you know, I'm building it up. I've got books to read. You know, and so just, you know, keep asking me to do things and I'll come along, you know, on Zoom or in person, you know. So So basically, the empowerment is to understand the gods talking through us as archetypes. So the archetypes and rulerships in the chart are what are we attached to in the outside world? What are we drawn to? What do we really associate with? And that's the correspondences, because the correspondence means from one to the other, but it's actually to the mirror. So that, as in the mirror of the moon, right? Or all the planets moving down through the spheres, and they come to the sublunary sphere, which is they then enter into the corruptible world, which is the world of change. We're born, we grow up, we live our lives, we die. Yeah, that this earthly realm of 4 elements, yeah, which is governed as astrologers. We have a chart to govern that, to help us guide to our key to guide it through, the earthly realm is in the chart. But as we live our lives, seek to move up and outward through the spheres, to gain our knowledge to the creator, and to become divination. We do things like prediction. We do all these amazing astrological techniques to move us up and out, because our ego, our persona, our identity, we want to know more. Well, here I am. I've got a name. I've got a, when I close my eyes, I find my space, But out here, I do my ego. Yeah, everyone does, right? We do our egos, right? We have this space that we are in. Behind us is the unconscious void. I've shown you that today, right? Now you've got the void. Yeah, that is behind which stuff flows out. But you didn't know that before today, right? Right? Maybe you did, but I've shown you something now, so you know it. So this unconscious space is where things that are not known about, the shadow, goes bloop, and it's just our consciousness. Stuff comes up, right? And it's like, oh my God, whatever. How do you deal with your shadow? Well, there it is, right? So if you see it when it comes up, just do this, right? Find your space, and then realize that it's the gods talking to you. But everything flows through you as well. So an example of that would be when I drive my car, right? I get into my car and I sit in a seat, yeah? And there I am driving along. Am I going anywhere? Well, no, I'm actually sat in a seat. So technically I'm not moving, but the world is flowing through me. The world is moving through me. And I do ask you to, because it's beautiful, by the way, to do the all-seeing eye when you're in your car. It's fantastic, right? Because you're just driving along and things are flowing around you, around your orb, around your space. And it's very enlightening. And then you can apply that, because it's like, of course, but you apply it to transits. Think about transits when you're doing that. You could do it on a subway, right? You could be in New York, right? You go down, or a subway, or a bus, or a bicycle, right? Or just walking, right? And you're not actually going anywhere, but the world flows through you. And that's why we have a word transits, because transits implies movement, doesn't it? Yeah. But when you enter your orb, because it's in orb, isn't it? Transits get into orb. They start becoming more and more intense because the gods are talking around through your orb. And it's like, oh yeah. So, but you can start to take much more control of it, and when you do, you'll find that you start to attain much better creativity, happiness, solution-focused ideas. It's just because you're just going to be in your orb. And this is very Pluto and Aquarius, of course, because Aquarius is a very rational kind of logic, isn't it? And we needed to have this new perception. See, so to go back. Oh, have I run out of time? Sorry. Oh no, right. To go.
No, you're fine. I didn't know if you wanted to get to a Q&A at some point, but forgive me for interrupting.
Oh, I'll just show a couple more bits and pieces, okay? And then because I went off on a bit of a tangent, but actually I do need to give another talk on things like transits, because it's all I've so much to say, Anyway, all right. So basically, to go back to the void of course, right? The void of course moon is When the moon goes void of course and no longer connects to anything in the sign that it is in before changing signs, it is no longer connected to other planets that are going around the ecliptic. So it's closer, or at its closest, to being at one with primary motion. So the moon being void of course is at its closest to the experience of primary motion that we have. Because when it's not connected to any other planets in the secondary motion, then it's getting close to the primary motion, which is why they say be meditative, quiet, and not do anything during void of course moon, because you get to your awareness. Okay, so the state of awareness that is where we would actually like to be most of the time if we can be. So we can do it all the time as astrologers. Oh, void of course moon. Yeah, I'll look at my ephemeris. Oh, that's a few hours. Great. I'll do that. Yeah. And I'll just do a bit of this. Yeah, or whatever I like, really. But it's getting close then to the primary motion. Okay. Because the moon's not connecting to secondary motion. It's going to primary motion. And that's why the moon, I suppose, one could say it's why the moon is on its own band. Yeah, with the nodes, it's on its own. The nodes crossing the ecliptic is on its own orbit. Yeah, slightly the 23 degree. I need to. Sorry, I'll study it. What am I saying? I'm a bit tired. Sorry. Right. Okay. I'm speaking too much, but you get the idea. The moon is on its own separate orbit. So, by being in the void, if you do your all-seeing eye experiment, then through that meditative and quiet phase, you can tune into your thoughts as they are arising and connect comfortably with your feelings through your sensory field of the five senses. So it really is a very calm time. You just got to know, use the void of course moon to your advantage. Okay. And then you connect to your senses and you become more present moment. Okay. Which is, of course, is key to everything, really. Right. So now, if one is sailing, like on the water, as I mentioned earlier, or into a horizon, then one is in navigation setting a course. In traditional astrology, they refer to the helmsman, as being the ascendant and the rising sign of the chart. And one thinks of maybe a naval navigator with a rudder and a compass directing one's life, the helmsman. Yeah, well, they said that's the ascendant. I think they also, because that's my rising sign, everything's rising up into this space. So the helmsman is recognizing that you have a space that you can go into where you can direct your life from, right? So the helmsman is the navigator that shows us how to navigate or set a course around our awareness and our void space, all right? The infinity that we are in. We're in that super infinity. So a void of course moon is because the moon is moving towards being in the void, all right? Where it will be when it changes sign, it will go to 0 degrees, all right? So the 0 degrees is the void, because that is like a big zero. It's a big no thing or nothing or no. The no thing is the O, which is a kind of the symbol for no number, but pure awareness. And when you think about the zodiac, you think, why does it have 12 zeros? Why do we have 12 zeros? Yeah, well, I might get onto that in a minute, but I'm going to tell you first about my thoughts about the Thema Mundi. Okay, so they say that this is the chart that began the world. Yeah, the first chart, the world theme, and it was a mythical horoscope that was used in Hellenistic astrology that shows the supposed positions of the 7 visible planets, including the sun and moon, at the beginning of the universe. Now, I showed you earlier that when your eyes closed, you have the space of the universe within you. With your eyes open, then you begin to enter the universe we're in now. So eyes open, eyes closed is like a Big Bang or a creation myth or a mythology, because you open it and suddenly it's like everything's there. So I would like to suggest that, having done the experiments, that the beginning of the universe occurs every time you open your eyes. And that is because if you look at the word of the etymology of the universe, Then you have the 12th century Old French word, the whole world, univers, the whole world, cosmos, the totality of existing things. From Latin, we have universum, which is all things, everybody, all people, the whole world. And in Latin, the adjective universus, which is altogether, all in one, whole, entire, relating to all, or literally turned into one, from unus, one. And what I've been showing you today is the all-seeing eye, the one, that we're inside the one, it moves around with us. So the universe is within as without. So the Thema Mundi, therefore, is the experience, I believe, maybe, and I love to discuss this with others, so please come and get in touch with me about this, because there's an awful lot to say here, at least to, you know, it's quite interesting. So I think that the Thema Mundi is the eyes open, like the beginning of the world. I opened my eyes this morning, I woke up, boom, and I saw the world around me. And as I saw the world around me, I had the ascendant, my orb of my space around me, my all-seeing eye, yeah, was the first thing. It's full of sensations which are ruled by the moon, yeah, because the moon is the first sphere. That we're in the sublunary sphere. So the sublunary sphere has got the moon in it. Yeah, there it is, right? The moon in its dignity, yeah, on the ascendant. Quite nice, right? In the middle of the sign, because they're all at 15 degrees, aren't they? They're all in the middle of the sign. So they've all developed middle state consciousness. Not just 0 degrees awareness leading into consciousness. 0 is a pure awareness, pure stage of light of awareness. Oh, we've just changed sign we just had spring equinox. So we just went to 0 Aries. And now today we're around about, what are we, about 10 Aries or something? 9 Aries, 8 Aries? Get the idea. We're moving through developing our consciousness in this Aries season. From no thing at the beginning. Spring started, spring sprung, bing, and then numbers day by day, light, 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 dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. We're moving through developing our numbers of consciousness, which is, again, transits. So it's the light of the sun. We're following the light of the sun on the ecliptic degrees of the zodiac, light of the sun. Right. And so we're moving it through. Again, so much to say here. Oh, my goodness. Please come and talk to me. Please invite me to come and talk, because I can say so much, right? Now, the moon on the ascendant in Cancer, right? And then the next one is the sun in Leo, and then all the planets stretching out like into space around me. So you just have to move the Thema Mundi. Imagine it. There it is as a chart. Now look at this. This is the Thema Mundi. I'm going to show you something that's going to mind-blowingly good. The Nebra Sky Disk, everybody. Oh, yes, this is beautiful. This is it. There is the Thema Mundi, graphically represented from more than 5,000 years ago. Okay? So I went to see this in the British Museum. There was a huge exhibition about Stonehenge, and they put the Nebra Sky Disk into a glass case, and it had a queue of people going past it for 3 months. Right? And I went there, and I was doing all my experiments as I went and looked at the Nebra, and it suddenly came to me, and I was just like, oh my God, of course. That's the Thema Mundi. Why is it the Thema Mundi? Right? Well, the ascendant is the primary motion of awareness. So we're pointing into an awareness field. The moon rules the left eye. The sun rules the right eye. The other planets are the reflected lights stretching out in order on both sides of the luminaries. And this is seen in the Nebra Sky Disk. There it is. Because the all-seeing eye is the whole disk. I've done this with you today. There it is. The Nebra Sky Disk is the Thema Mundi, right? Which is the all-seeing eye. Now, the archaeologists call this thing here, there's the moon, there's the sun, here are the other reflected lights of the planets, and the archaeologists call this the handholds, that one and that one. It's in the book. I've got the book. I'll show you. I'll take photographs of it. Anybody who wants to see it. They're called the handholds. The handholds. The handholds. Handholds around the edge. You hold the edge of the disc. Do you hold it out? Do you hold it back? Do you flip it around and show other people it? Right? And the helmsman, everybody, the helmsman in the archaeologists call this disc, this bit here, the boat. What's a helmsman? Guiding a course, right? Through the light, because the ascendant, the primary motion, everything. The helmsman's is like taking us through the course. And it's the boat. And to show you the boat, here it is like this. Now look down now. There's another experiment for you. Look down. Where have you ever seen your own chin? Well, I look down and it vanishes into a space here. It just vanishes, right? I can't even see my hand. If I bring my hand up, it vanishes. My hand's vanished. I can't see it. Yeah, I bring my hand here and I can see it, right? Bring it up and I can't see it. What's it feeling like? It feels like I'm floating on water. Yeah, I'm a helmsman. I'm a helmsman floating on my water, right? Floating through space because everything flows, like floats through me. My horizons, everything around me floats through. They call it the helmsman because they're showing that Nebra Sky Disk is everything I've shown you today from 5,000 years ago, right? Well, I hope you enjoyed that. It's at the bottom of the disc, right? So you just do this. So you have your handhold, then you have your left eye, right eye. Because, of course, the 7 traditional planets were all the 7 things. Ears, so you've got the 2 nostrils, 2 eyes, mouth, and 2 ears. So that's 7 traditional planets. Moon is the left eye, sun is the right eye. Yeah? Is that right? Yeah, moon is that. That's right. Yeah. And so sun is right eye, moon is left eye. Thema Mundi here, yeah, represented as a disc, handholds, boat, reflected lights, because the luminaries reflect. I could finish off today by saying the sun never goes out. The sun is an eternal light that never goes out. So when you look up into the sky now and you see a beautiful blue sky, yeah, and it's beautiful out there, it's just gorgeous, isn't it? The blueness is so fine, it's lovely. But at sunset, the blueness vanishes, right? And what we get is the spin of the primary motion has taken us to the bit where the sun is not shining on us. And so instead, we see all the stars we see in the firmament are just the reflected sun's light back at us, right? And then dawn, the sun appears in the east, the sun appears and the sky goes blue again. So what color are the heavens? What color is the heavens? Blue, because it never goes out, right? And I hope you've enjoyed this lecture today.
Julian, I wish we could do this for hours, like an Alan Watts recording. I could listen to you for hours. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's more, you know. I mean, have I got to finish?
I apologize. We are pretty much near time. And if you have a few minutes for a couple of questions, if that's okay with you, maybe we can extend this to a workshop or another.
Please do. I mean, you know, or anybody who does like, you know, podcasts and things like that, or wants a conference, I could do a great talk at a workshop at a conference, like a one-day workshop. We can go through all this. And
let's do a workshop. Let's talk astrology.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
But Julian, thank you so much for a brilliantly insightful webinar. One of the most unique webinars I've been involved in. And actually going back to your exercises, I kind of got lost where I was. I forgot I was hosting a worldwide webinar. So I got took to a different place. So thank you so much for those exercises, and for everyone, hopefully you were going along absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So do you have a few minutes for some Q&A questions?
Yes, of course. Absolutely.
All the hearts flowing in. I'm sorry to cut you off. Father Time is knocking at the door, so we have to get into some questions here. Okay, first one here from Anita. So the fact that our galaxy is moving at 525,000 miles per hour through the universe contributes to consciousness?
Can you just say that one again, please? Sorry.
So the fact that our galaxy is moving at 525,000 miles an hour through the universe contributes to our consciousness?
Well, science tells us that, doesn't it? But so the fact that our galaxy moves at that speed, I think the planet Earth is meant to move at a quite a rapid rate, isn't it? But I believe that we're on a sphere that's turning, and And because the sphere turns, the rest of the universe is rising in the east into my consciousness. So my awareness is pure at the center and unchanging. But every morning, if I look out over the eastern horizon, I will see things appear in it, which includes the sun and all the other planets and everything else that rises up. Okay, so it's technically not the galaxy turning at a whatever speed it's reckoned to be at. It's the speed that things appear in my consciousness, but it's not the speed of a galaxy moving. It's the speed of the space that I'm in.
Wonderful.
Which is how we would look at a chart as well, because when you look at a chart, you're looking at the vastness graphically represented, but then seeing it as, why does that graphic representation appear as it does in my astrology? You know, why are things like they are?
Wonderful. Going back to a more philosophical bent, the question here is, where does my knowledge as a divine spirit come in your opinion? Or where does my all-knowing as a divine spirit come in your opinion?
Spirit is everywhere and everything, and it's consistent, and spirit creates form and matter. And that is Plotinus, I think. Pretty certain it is. So spirit is everywhere. So things create, spirit makes things manifest into form. So in recognizing my awareness as my spirit that is eternal and immortal, because it will never, once now you know it, it'll never, you know, life, birth, death, and everything has just become a different subject, a different experience today, because I've shown you the space that you're in. No, you know, it's going to be different from now, because you got something else to think about, and take your time, you know, don't rush, just enjoy it. But basically the idea that spirit is awareness incarnate in a corporeal form. The soul is the journey and development of consciousness. So spirit is always here. The soul descends through the spheres at birth, is born into conjoin with the spirit, and it's fused together with pneuma, prana, breath. So the two are fused together, and then the soul's journey begins in this realm, which is the extent of life. And then the soul, then, you know, so soul is life. Spirit is always here. Spirit is always present and creates the matter in which soul can inhabit. There we go.
Wonderful. Eloquently spoken. Absolutely wonderful. Can you elaborate how to use these experiments that you were doing before to help someone through a reading? And you use these experiments with clients?
Well, I would say this is for you to create. Okay. So I've shown you something today that I believe is the perceptual shift that astrologers need with Pluto and Aquarius. The reason I've shown you this today is because when I go to things like psychic fairs and all this sort of stuff, astrology, honestly, people, the stuff they say, right? For a start, things like conspiracy theories and all that sort of stuff, honestly, oh my God, you know. And then people start talking about things like 4D and 5D and all this, and it's way beyond me, you know, because I just know that I'm sort of 3D with spirit and soul, you know, and mind, body, spirit, if you like, you know. But it seems to have gotten way off track and all these different things. So I'm trying to show you to show others, right? Choose it. You can keep it as experiments for yourself, or you can show others as well. The point being is that a really difficult transit, it's like you're entering into a new realm now. It's slightly more magical realm, if you like, because I've actually shown you the keys today to creative manifestation and the law of attraction. Do what you will with it, you know, do what you want with it, right? It's just something to play around with. right? And it makes life far more sublime. It's quite enjoyable, really. I love it. I just, I'll go for a walk to the shops and I'll walk the dog, and I go to the park, the dog's pulling me along. I do first person, I'll do first person experience, and I'll have my orb around me and things are coming into it and out through it, moving through me, and I'm not going anywhere because I'm staying, my awareness is purely at the center, and anything like that. So it's just a useful technique. Yeah. I would say show your clients it. Why not? Right. But it's up to you. Right. I would keep it as the astrologer and be the astrologer magician. Right? And then you've got a super edge on things. You know what I mean?
Wonderful. Thank you. Last couple of questions here. So are we actually looking out from our birth chart? Is that kind of what you've been speaking to?
What we're doing is we're looking out into this measurement. Okay. So it is the gift of astrology is to show the measurement of the space that we are in. That's astrology's gift. But I think over the last 400 years, that kind of got a little bit, not quite, it kind of got a bit off track, because we had to return back to first person perspective in order to really get the most of the measurement. Now you if you go first person, right, and then look at the chart, you'll see the measurement of things. Okay. And you'll also have the mirror, the reflective mirror, which is in Sufism, Hinduism, Buddhism, the Dharmic mirror. We're just reflections of the world. All is mind. Yeah. Everything is manifesting in my mind. The very fact that I'm here now talking to you is a manifestation of mind. Okay. So all of this is in the chart, and it's the correspondences, which is the rulerships of the planets. I mean, will go in my books and things, and it's for further workshops and further development. I'm really enjoying discovering this, but I'm at the stage now where I can start to show you it, but understand that it's the correspondences and rulerships are that space that you are in. That's why you are drawn to the things you do and like and so forth.
Wonderful. I can feel your enthusiasm through the screen. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, last question for today. Excuse me. I watched a video recently with Robert Comer, who spoke about the turning of the planets in one direction and the precessional cycles in the other. He spoke about the eternal moment of nothingness in the middle of that. Can you speak to that?
I don't know who Robert Comer is. The precessional.
So speaking about the turning of the planets in one direction.
What I'm talking about today is just your experience, okay? Your personal experience. Because this is a work in progress, I can't technically align it at the moment to the precessional ages and 26,000 year cycles, except to say that you are immortal. Because you've discovered, hopefully today, you've discovered your spirit at center, that awareness at center that never leave, it's always there. And yeah, so that's what I can say today. It's a work in progress. Yeah, so just enjoy what I've shown you today, yeah, I think that's best I can say right now for that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. So to reiterate, before this recording will be up on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. I need to rewatch this to soak in all the information. The experiment, absolutely brilliant. I got lost. I forgot where I was. Absolutely fantastic. And on your website again is londanastrologer.co.uk. And if people scroll down, they can subscribe as well. Is that right?
It's just a free subscription. Just get the newsletter. So, and on my website, you can buy a book. I have talismans as well. So I have a beautiful Venus talisman here and a Jupiter talisman. These are very powerful chargeable devices.
Did you make them yourself?
Yes, I made them myself. They're made out of pewter, which is tin. So this is Jupiter's metal tin. Here's the Jupiter one. Hang on. So it's Zeus Amon, and it brings great good fortune and good luck.
Wow.
So this is like where the word ammonite comes from, but it's just a very powerful talisman indeed, and really quite wonderful to wear. And Venus is the Venusian one, which is on a seashell. So you can see the Venus symbol at the front there.
Oh,
and
wow.
then it's got Agrippa's sigil on the back. And Cunius Agrippa's 15th century Venus sigil on the back. And these were cast at exactly the right moments to get them fully empowered. So they are very, very, and so I sell them with a booklet of prayers and the charts in the book. So if you order a talisman from me, you'll get the booklet with all the prayers and stuff. And yeah, they're just quite wonderful, actually. So do sort of think about those. Buy a book and a talisman. You know, why not? And the experiments are in here, plus a whole load of other stuff. My actual the reasoning of my whole theory, the proof of concept is here. Okay, so what I've shown you today, the proof of concept is contained in the book, and parts 2 and 3 are on their way. And I'll sign it if you buy it from my website. A bit more expensive to buy it from the website, but I'll sign the copy for you. And but otherwise, it's Amazon. You can get it on Amazon. Slightly different. You know, I can't technically sign those, but so it's on Amazon as well. Amazon.com.
Wonderful. Well, Julian, on behalf of Kepler College, thank you so much for a wonderfully unique and insightful presentation. Absolutely wonderful. All the hearts and the claps coming through, and we'll have this replay out in the next couple of days. So thank you so much again for your brilliant insights and your wisdom and your knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
everybody
much.
Else
thank
for,
you very
for
much.
today.
I really hope everyone enjoyed that today and really get something from it. So thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thanks, Julian. And thanks
Thank
everyone.
you everyone for tuning in, especially if you're on different time zones, New Zealand, Australia, those kind of places as well. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful. Well, thank you all so much, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.